Well, then, so basically.
I'll shut the door so that you're not getting.
I can leave it open. It's not that loud up there.
Well, the other session's going.
Oh, okay. Got it.
You've got video.
All right. Thank you all for coming to this workshop, a session on basically speaking about the primary topic of gamification. I'm Wang. I'm founder and president of KP Education Systems. And we have here the lovely Dr. Lisa Assante, who is here, and
I've used this product, so I'm going to endorse it and tell you how it works in a classroom.
yes, absolutely. So this wonderful talk will be about what gamification is, and what we want to do is we want to gamify flat content. So we're going to discuss about what we do is we put knowledge into practice. So that's our moniker KP. And we believe very strongly into that in that aspect there. So we're going to go over what is gamification, because a lot of people think, is it making games so that or is it edutainment? Well, gamification is neither of those. Gamification, which we'll cover, is actually using the philosophies and the psychological cues of games to motivate students and get them engaged. So it's not building games. Building games are great, but there's only so much resources you can to build the game. We're going to talk a little bit about intelligent tutoring systems, so that we're looking at ways to harness big data and intelligence in the network, and to be able to take that information and to build a personalized learning experience, which we dub the personal digital tutor. Okay, so I want to start off with a little talk about me, because I want you to kind of set the context as to why I set out to build and do what I do in education. So first off, I was made in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, where I was born, I was emigrated. My parents emigrated to the United States when I was only 2 years old. So in that time, I grew up in a Chinese restaurant, which made life and living very difficult. A lot of Chinese people who immigrate open up restaurants, and we did that. So because I came from that environment, I was English as a second language, which is the classification in the United States where we have basically difficulty in the English language. And because of that, I had reading problems growing up when I was a kid. So I suffered from ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So it was very difficult for me to focus on materials. I even failed a math class, and for Chinese kids in America, it's very, yeah, failing a math class is unheard of. And it wasn't because I didn't know math. Actually, I know math really well. I was bored in class. I was disengaged in the classroom, and because of that, I suffered and I did poorly on the test because it just wasn't challenging me. But the thing I loved was video games. I loved video games. I played video games a lot. That's held my attention, helped keep me going and motivated. And because of that, that let me put out my energy, which then led to computers, learning about computers, how to program. I taught myself programming, and then it eventually led me to becoming a digital learning specialist because of my focus in that area and my passion for education. So in other words, the system didn't work for me because the education system created a disengagement for my own personality, and I wanted to do something that worked better for me. So I'm going to show you this little clip here, which I love, from one of my favorite shows called Big Bang Theory. So I don't know how it is over here in Europe, if it's a very popular show or not.
Oh yeah.
Oops. And then, of course, I need to turn the audio up.
And then, okay, we're going to stick this in here, and then I'm going to pour in the milk. I hope this works because I didn't bring a change of pants.
Look, I googled it. It's a fake picture. That's it. No cake for you. Anyone else want to join the no cake club?
Just kidding, boys and girls. Everyone gets a cake.
So So yeah, what I love about that clip is it clearly illustrates how these kids are growing up with information right at their hands. They never knew or understand a world where we grew up, where we actually had to physically relocate ourselves to a library. Go look up information in a Dewey Decimal System. I don't know what the equivalent is, I mean, if it's different anywhere else. Go look up articles in microfiche and scan through. I actually did that. I scanned through microfiche to look for articles to do research projects. And that's a long, involving process. And now you can just pull up your phone in your pocket and you can ask Siri anything. And then it'll pull it right up in front of you. It's just incredible. So they never know the struggles we had to go through to get information. And because of that, these students are expecting that type of instantaneous gratification of information. So this is a very popular model of technology integration called SAMR. I don't know how widely accepted it is around the world, but basically what this illustrates is like, how we think about technology and when we integrate it into our daily lives in education, or actually anything. So a lot of people focus a lot on S and A, which is substitution and augmentation, which is basically the easy way of doing things. Like, instead of writing a letter, you email now. That's a substitution. But what we really focus on is where we can take the technology and we modify and redefine how we do things. And that's the evolutionary leap that we want to go for with the technology that we do. We don't want to just like replace what you do, but we want to completely change the way we think about things and how we approach content and information. So technology is very powerful, and it can replace everything. Well, maybe not everything. But, has anyone seen this funny little commercial?
Emma. Emma.
Yeah, it's a toilet commercial. And as you can see, I like using funny little video clips when I talk because that's my personality. The whole video game thing, and it keeps my attention. So yeah, I mean, technology is used to replace a lot of things, and obviously it can't replace everything. We as instructors, we are there to nurture the students. We don't want to be replaced. We need to be there, and we want to be. But the technology helps us in our daily lives. So let's talk about video games. Video games is not where big gamification came from, but video games is a great way to describe the aspects of how students of today are so addicted to it. In fact, I have a video game addiction. I play video game and I obsess over it. I mean, that's why I don't play video games anymore, because I know I could get sucked in so badly. And actually, there is an actual addiction to video games that's very prevalent in China, actually. They actually have Chinese boot camps where they send kids who are addicted to video games and the internet. It's crazy there. So I want to ask the room here, what is your idea of gamification? Anybody here? Anybody have an idea? Yes, go right ahead.
The idea where you take a subject and then you get the students through playing some kind of game to get the material. Now I could give maybe a different example, but Sophie's World, this book that's written about philosophy, maybe a similar kind of analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people create games, and I like to say that that's one aspect of it, but that's not the real reason why we gamify information. Because we don't need to create games. We don't have to create games, but we use the game aspect. So anyone else have any input on this as well? Nope. Okay, let's move on. So gamification, one of the biggest reasons why we want to gamify, or in fact, what I'm going to illustrate here is we kind of need to gamify, is because there's the correlation between the way children would entertain and how they are reflected in the classroom. So here, this is a nice little graphic here, which is basically illustrating the difference between passive and active engagement. So when we were growing up, and actually I'm kind of cross-transitional to both. We had, cartoons. Cartoons was the prevalent way that parents used to babysit. Like, they put you in front of a television, you watch Mickey Mouse, and you become enamored by these characters. And then as you're growing up, you love them. You have really fond memories of it. And these characters, you relate to these characters, and they tell stories. And you're sitting in front of the television, and you're passively absorbing the information. And you got to think back in the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, classrooms at the time, and even in some cases now, they're all sitting in nice, neat rows, and the students were sitting there and passively absorbing information from the teacher or the professor in the front. And that worked, actually, because the students were taught this is the way you absorb information. But when video games became available in the 80s and then ubiquitous in the 90s and beyond, where now we have it on your phones, suddenly these students have a different form of engagement and entertainment. So instead of passively sitting and watching stuff going on television, now they're actively controlling the lives of these avatars, and they grow fond with them. They love them. They form great associations with these characters as they grow up. But the biggest thing is now, we take them to the classroom, and we still put them in the front of an environment where they're being lectured at. And what happens? They're sitting in the classroom. They're saying, "Where's my control? How am I supposed to affect the outcome? What can I make decisions to go?" And then what happens? They disengage and they fall asleep in a lot of cases. So the thing is, now we're having children growing up in a world where they're controlling all these different aspects, the avatars, that they're making decisions, they're going through a level in the video game, and they're seeing the results, instantaneous results of what they've done. Whether they pass a level with a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, how many headshots they made in Call of Duty or one of those mini games, and they see those results, and then they go, okay, this is what I did. Next one, I'm going to go for this achievement. I'm going to do better, and they're challenged by that. And those are the aspects of gamification that we want to really focus on. Is basically bringing those areas in there. So this is actually a really a theory that actually I've been working on for quite a while. What does the audience think about this aspect of this model of describing how these students are learning now? Anything? Good? Bad? Positive? Makes sense? Doesn't make sense? Head nods. Accurate?
Common sense.
Common sense, yes, absolutely. Common sense. Not based on any research, but common sense. Eventually, I'm sure there'll be a research study about this, and I'll be able to quote somebody on that. But this last video clip, actually, I want to show you here is a really great little description about.
In the 1990s, Douglas Rushkoff
This
coined
aspect.
the term screenagers to describe a generation that for the first time ever was growing up to think that images on screens weren't just something to passively stare at, but instead were something to be manipulated. Well, today, it's even more extreme. The tools and connectivity provided by the web allow us to think of images on screens not just as things to manipulate, but as things to project our own identities onto. Not everyone who does this is a professional storyteller, or acclaimed poet, or coherent. But content aside, hyperlinked webs of human expression are incredibly rich environments, and they exercise the brain. More so than books? Well, for the sake of argument, let's read from Everything Bad is Good for You, a book by Stephen Johnson. Now, in this passage, he imagines a world in which books were invented after video games and the World Wide Web. Kids everywhere are starting to read these newfangled books, and teachers and parents are concerned. He imagines they might say something like this. Perhaps the most dangerous property of these books is the fact that they follow a fixed linear path. You can't control their narratives in any fashion. You simply sit back and have the story dictated to you. For those of us raised on interactive narratives, this property may seem astonishing. Why would anyone want to embark on an adventure utterly choreographed by another person? But today's generation embarks on such adventures millions of times a day. Reading is not an active participatory process, it's a submissive one. The book readers of the younger generation are learning to follow the plot instead of learning to lead. Interesting.
So that video clip is from a YouTuber who does a lot of really wonderful, interesting entertainment clips. But that's a really great way to think about like how we're taking these students who are born in the video game generation and we're addressing them into this linear fashion. And it's difficult for us to follow that because we're so used to doing and moving and making decisions and changing things. So if you ever want to find it, his channel is called Vsauce, as in V and then sauce on YouTube. And he has lots of really good videos, and this is just one of them. So with that being said, I'm just going to take moments and talk about why video games are so addicting. Because what we want to do is we want to take those addictive qualities in video games and apply it towards learning and education. So so basically, one of the biggest things is a temporary escape for these kids. They're being entertained, they're being taken out of their world. Obviously, this is something that we cannot apply in education, but that's one of the biggest reasons why they're addicted to it. But another thing that's really interesting is that there's a social component and an anonymity component that's very attractive as well. So the social is like, they can work in groups and teams together, but then they can also be anonymous. They can do things and measure their achievement versus other people, and they don't have to really be compared to the peers, but they could do their own personal comparison. They are very challenged, and there's goals involved in these games. So there's a reason why they're accomplishing this. There's a reason why they go on quests to collect the sacred sword, the Dragon Slayer +5 or something like that. So they get challenged on that. But this is the most important aspect that we can easily replicate is constant measurable growth. Students need feedback, and they want it. They want it. They hunger for it. And this aspect, to be able to deploy and give them the constant measurable growth is a quintessential component of this entire learning process. So with that in mind, we created a system called the Automatic Remediation and Mastery System. So these are very important words because first off, it's automatic. So it doesn't really require any human intervention. So because the system takes care of itself. They're remediated through the content. So remediation is a key learning component. Mastery, just don't learn it once. We want you to master the information to get it to a higher level, and it's a system. So this thing we call the personal digital tutor is all about personalization. So they're all personalized, and they all have constant measurable growth. So the core motivators is we want to pull from this is instantaneous feedback, constant instant feedback. We want to show them steady, viewable progress and provide them achievements, so something that they could use to measure themselves against, or on top of that, brag about, because we have students who are in the system and they are bragging about the badges that they got or aspects of it as well. So how we perform is we have the students check their knowledge. When we have this, so basically what we have is we have topics that we want students to master. So this is some topics on stocks. It might be anything. Within each of these topics, there's content. So content could be written language, such as paragraphs of information, pictures, illustrations, video, animations. Whatever is used in here is designed to make the students successful at learning this topic here. So we want them to check their knowledge, and notice that it doesn't say test, quiz, exam. We call it check your knowledge. Because we want them to think, okay, you're made it to a checkpoint in a video game, so we're using gamified vernacular to make it so that it's less threatening. Who loves the word test, right? If you do, then, well, to meet you. So when that happens, they're engaging our digital tutor, and questions are asked about each topic here, and then they are then assessed. And we use a formative assessment process that measures the questions through item response theory. And then these are things that I can talk at length about and spend a long time, but I just want to say that we use these aspects in the form of assessment. Abundant assessments, no repeating questions, Bloom's taxonomy, and constructive criticism. And then the instant feedback comes in this form, which basically is summed this like this. These are the ones that you did good at. These are the ones you need to spend time and work on. Focus your time, study again, and then go and do another knowledge check. And then what happens is after the next knowledge check, we're going to ask them different questions, and then they see this. Oh, there we go. This where you get more green, so you're seeing progress, and then the content that they're supposed to work on narrows, so they're focusing. And then the next one they see here, we got even more. So now they're going, okay, yeah, I'm seeing growth, I'm seeing progress. I have these few pages to work on now. And then the net result is we're making them more efficient, but also building their confidence, because this is all formative, but we have a summative exam coming up, a certification exam, something that requires their some sort of proctored environment. And if we walk in, confidence makes a huge difference in test-taking ability. So if the tutor says you're great, then I know I'm great, and I'm going to go and do great on that test. And then the professor will be able to monitor the students. So this is just kind of like a big cross-section of the class. So you can see, who's ready for what level they are. Gives you this nice global view of everybody. So when you're ready to take this exam, you can say, okay, the class is ready for this, but the class isn't ready for that. So maybe we should do some extra notes. And because of that, this is when Lisa is going to talk about her results from what she did when she flipped her classroom.
So ultimately, I too had learning challenges, especially in Penn State as my undergrad. I do have ADHD, and I don't learn from rote memorization. I am a horrifying test taker, and it terrifies me. So I always look, and the way I teach is to do things that I would learn best from. So I try to incorporate all the different learning models that students have. And so what I did, in 2011, I met Nye in Denver, EuroCHRIE, and I was looking for a game. Actually, I was looking for some type of simulation. I was teaching a quantity food production class in a high school home economics kitchen. So if you could put your mind around that, it's not an ideal situation, right? I didn't have proper equipment. So I wanted something that would simulate what would happen in a big kitchen, or at least have some type of support material. So in the limited time I had in an economics lab, a home ec lab, I could do much more with the students. And so what happened was, I put the system in, I chose the chapters I wanted, and I completely flipped the class. Back then, I didn't know it was called flipping. That seems like it's a newer buzzword. But I put the burden of proof on this, or the burden of learning on the students. So they had to read the material, do the check your knowledges as many times as they could to master the subject, so it showed more green, and then they would come to class. And it eliminated a lot of time for lectures, so there was not a lot of that painfully boring stuff. It allowed the students, I did a thing with them where they had to, I assigned certain areas from the chapter, and they would have to do a presentation at the beginning of class and some type of food demo for 15 minutes or so. And they became really competitive. It was the craziest thing. And in one of the previous slides, in the bottom corner, there was, it looked like a little robot. Can you go back to that?
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you're going to show them.
Oh, that's a minor thing.
This
yeah.
thing, see where it says Venice? Okay, maybe minor to you, that was key to my students.
Yeah.
Because that's your badging, that's your reward. So it built a crummy kind of robot thing.
Yeah, there's a robot.
And then the more
Travels the world.
the more questions they got right, and the more successful they were being, the robot grew and changed. And then they would compete in the class over how cool their robot was and what countries the robot went to. And then it has real pictures from countries and little snippets. So they weren't just learning culinary, they were now having all this other material thrown at them that made them more engaged. And so it made me have a lot more rich discussions. They would actually, and I've been teaching a lot of years now, but I'd never had students actually go out and buy food products and practice at home. And I always taught it out of the On Cooking text, very good textbook. And flipping it to doing it this way, it was unbelievable. They would really compete, and they'd come in and they're like, Dr. Assante, I got to show you how I learned how quick I could bone a chicken or whatever. And it was awesome. It built their confidence tremendously, and it gave me the time to focus on the student learning outcomes. I could measure them a lot better by using the system and see what they were learning. And then I made my class a service learning designated class. And so at the university that I was teaching at the time, we had special designation on their transcripts saying service learning, which meant they went out into the community and did some type of project. So over the years, I've done many projects. This is one of the ones that I thought was greatest because I had less time needed for me to actually physically stand there and teach and lecture. I could do more activities. I had 7 students in the class this semester. It was a crazy small class. It was a new class, and I had 7 students, and in 7 weeks we raised $10,000. And that little boy has pancreatoblastoma cancer. It's very rare. Only 80 people in the world have ever had it. He was 5, and when he was in my class in this picture, his stomach was all stapled together still, and he had ports in his chest from the chemo. And he came in and he cooked with us, and we granted his wish. He went to Disney, him and his family of 5. We did a silent auction with that. That up there is some faculty that came to McDonald's. We were hawking apple pies and whatever. We partnered with all these local restaurants and did all kinds of crazy stuff. But it was because we had the opportunity, and then we hosted a mega event. We had 250 people for a pretty formal sit-down dinner on campus, and we got to use the campus food service facilities, which was really cool. So they learned it by watching the videos that were in the system and by practicing in little quantities in classroom and then doing a big event. So it was pretty beneficial. They walk out and they learn a lot, and then they remember those kind of experiences years down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what Lisa described was a success from a product that we created originally for food service and culinary arts. So that was basically our test bed, you know. And the biggest thing is like when we launched it, like we actually found like 2 to 3 times the learning rate as compared to normal. Like like in the traditional PACE classroom, we had teachers going, these students are just blowing through the material now because they're able to engage in it. Longer retention of content because they're mastering the content and repeating it, so they're actually remembering it, and they increase engagement. So now we're actually at a point where we're successful in that culinary food service environment, but now we're opening the platform up so that anybody can put any content in and be able to gamify it, utilizing the algorithms and the learning process that we develop. And we built it in a system called KP Compass BMS, and BMS stands for Book Management System, which is basically a way to be able to organize the content, and then you have ways to control the distribution, whether it to be just for you to your students, or you to your team of faculty, or your university to another university, or even globally as well. So it's actually a very powerful authoring platform that we've developed over the years, and we've actually worked with partner companies who provide content, like a book publisher, to convert their flat content into our learning environment. But this year is the first year where we're saying, hey, you probably have great documents and PowerPoints and things like that. Want to gamify it? Put it in here, and you can actually do it. We allow you to collaborate, so you can actually work on a project and have other people work on the same modules at the same time. And the best thing is we track all this data. So that means that you actually get, at the end of the semester, a report as to how engaged the students were with each piece of content, how effective the questions were, how effective everything was. So you can actually measure that and make adjustments year after year rather than getting it from surveys or something like that. So that's what we have, and we don't have any time for a demo, but actually, so I'm here for the whole week through Saturday. Come and see me, and and I can show you more in depth about it. I know I've spoken to you, a few of you, with already in depth about the program, and we're here at EuroCHRIE to basically try to break into the European market. So we need the proof within your programs to make it happen. So that's what the network that we're trying to build. So thank you so much, and on to the next session.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.